Welcome to Equine Assisted World. I'm your host, Rupert Isaacson, New York Times bestselling author of The Horse Boy, The Long Ride Home and The Healing Land. Before I jump in with today's guest, I just want to say a huge thank you to you, our audience, for helping to make this happen. I have a request. If you like what we do, please like, subscribe, tell a friend. It really helps us get this work done. As you might know from my books, I'm an autism dad. And over the last 20 years, we've developed several equine-assisted, neuroscience-backed certification programs. If you'd like to find out more about them, go to newtrailslearning.com. So without further ado, let's meet today's guest. Welcome back to Equine Assisted World. I've got Petra Vlasblom, who is Dutch and is a little bit of a legend in her area of problem-solving problem horses. Now, what has that got to do with Equine Assisted World? What it really has to do with is equine well-being. And I became aware of Petra when she came on a retreat that I did, and we began to talk a year and a half or so ago. And then I got to see her in action with a horse that was, let's say, on the nervous end. And I watched her use tools that were unusually reassuring for the horse. And then I found out more about her own story and that she had actually become a special needs rider effectively, both physically and mentally after a terrible accident, and had come to the professional side of horses actually pretty late by most equestrian professional standards. And I became rather intrigued at how effective she was, especially with people in the Netherlands with very, very complex sport horses coming to her, and she just getting this sort of consistent track record. And I think for many of us in the equine assisted field, we're getting these horses coming to us with trauma is a much overused word, but let's just say stories in their life, in their nervous system that maybe impair their own well-being. And if we can accept that a horse cannot give well-being unless it has well-being, then we really need to look in a much more professional way, I think, at the donation horses that come to us and not just sort of say, oh, well, it'll be fine. Because it's true, quite often it is, but quite often it isn't. And some of those horses end up going back to where they came from. And then we don't really know what happens to them. But then the other thing is, and those of you who know our Taquine program are aware of this, that actually the rehab of horses is as therapeutic a thing in its own right to do as receiving therapy from, if you like, a prepared horse. The rehab of prospective therapy horses we find in our Taquine work is its own therapy. It's massively empowering for people. You take, someone who came back with trauma from the army, or someone who's had abuse, or someone with a lot of anxiety. You say, hey, listen, this horse was broken to some degree in service. Can you help me put this horse back together so it can serve this person over there? The process of doing that is its own therapy. So I'm really intrigued to talk to Petra about the methods she uses, and from all of us who are professionals in this field, what can we learn and how can we improve things in our own practice? So thank you so much, Petra, for coming on the show. And I'm sorry about the long preamble. Can you tell us a bit more about who you are? How'd you get into this? And what's your approach?
Yeah, I'm Petra. I'm from the Netherlands, and I've been working as a horse behavior trainer since I think 25 years. And before that, I was a graphic designer. So I was sitting behind the computer making beautiful things, and never had my own horse before, but I really like horse riding. But I didn't grow up in a farm or in a area that there were a lot of horses. I was living in the city, in the poor side of the city, so there was no horse in around that area. So my dream as a little girl to have my own horse didn't came out it was not possible. But when I became a little bit older, I still riding horses on a riding school. And in 2001, I went to Australia for a holiday. And there I learned a lot about natural horsemanship. And that was completely new for me. So there was a new way of handling horses, have an, a total new way of having a communication and a relationship with a horse. And after I went to Australia, I was really like, whoa, this is something special. And it changed my mind about my work, about my life, am I doing the things I want to do? So in Australia, I thought, maybe I have to go 1 year to Australia to learn a lot about the woman who teach me the basics of the natural horsemanship. And then I went for a weekend to Belgium, to the Ardennes. And then I saw a horse, and it was a beautiful horse. And I heard the story of the horse, and he was 8 years old, and nobody was able to ride him for 5 years. He was very dangerous, very untrainable. And he kicked, he bit, he was angry, and he was very scared. So that was a tough combination to train. And I fell in love immediately immediately with this horse. And when I saw him, I had the feeling we belonged together. But it was stupid because I wasn't planning to buy a horse. Long story short, I bought him. And I wasn't a professional trainer. I didn't have my own horse before. And I bought a horse that nobody, professional trainers, nobody was able to ride on. So I bought him as an, how do you say it in English? Sorry, I can't.
Experiment,
Yeah,
prospect.
experiments. It's like, I thought, yeah, maybe with the things I've learned in Australia, maybe it's possible to get a better relationship with the horse. And I had the feeling it wasn't nobody unders- understood this horse before. So I bought him, and I had a lot of problems because he broke my arm by trailer loading. So he kicked me and broke both bones of my underarm. He
Like on the first day loading him, or
no, I of course I have to picking him up, picking him. Sorry,
had to pick him up? Yeah.
yeah, in Belgium,
Mm,
and it took 2 days to get him on in the trailer.
okay.
And after 2 days, we did a lot of, how do you say it in English, tranquilizers in his food.
Okay.
And then we get him on the trailer, but it was not the
He was
right way.
sedated. Right. Yeah.
Yeah, sedated, yeah. And it was not the right way, of course. And after that, I started, because I was so interested in the behavior of horses and also the behavior of horses that are misunderstood
Hmm.
or maybe not trained well. I don't know. At that time, I didn't knew.
Yeah.
And I started all schoolings, courses, because I really want to have more knowledge about horse behavior. So then I have to ask other people who knew more about horse
And I
behavior.
presume you had this horse at a public stable, right? You didn't have this horse at home because at that time you didn't have
No,
the facilities. Yeah.
yeah, public stable, and it was terrible.
Yeah.
When I arrived there, it took me 3 hours to get him into the stable
Okay.
because he thought it's the same as the trailer. I don't get in there.
Right.
So he was terrible. He broke my arm. He threw me off every time, and it was tough journey.
And this horse, this is the horse Two Moons.
Yes,
Okay.
he's still
So
alive.
he's still alive, but you barely. What was the reaction of the other people in the stable to having a horse like this?
Yeah, they didn't like him at all. And he was like, yeah, he's so difficult. He was difficult for everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, okay, so he hurts you. He's impossible for everybody. You get interested in horse behavior naturally. What happens then?
Then I learned a lot, and I learned I had a lot of instructors to work with him. But every time I thought, it's not as I realized it was not the way to handle this horse, so it was not successful. And at that time, I thought, with my love, I can I can change the mind of the horse because I love him so much. I'm taking good care of him, and he will trust me and began to have a better communication with me. La la la. I thought with my love, everything will be okay.
And what happened?
I've seen a lot of hospitals.
So, what was the first hospital thing that your love put you into?
My broken arm,
Okay. And then
and then he dislocated my hip
how did he do that?
by throwing me off.
Okay.
I have the videos, Rupert. We can show
Okay.
them. I have a
Really?
video that he kicked me off. Yeah. He
Okay.
was bucking and running so hard.
Okay.
Yeah. And
And you had professionals look at his back. You
yeah,
checked him
yeah,
out from a
yeah,
veterinary point of
yeah, of
view.
course. Yeah. No
Yeah.
problem at all. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And at that time I realized he was like a mirror to me because he was angry and he was
Mm-hmm.
scared.
Mm-hmm.
And it was very tough to work with him because sometimes he was scared and he wants to run away, but he was on a rope or something, so I couldn't I could have hold him. And sometimes he was so angry and he was kicking and biting and he was like very aggressive.
You
And
say that he was like your mirror. Were you behaving like this as well?
to be honest, there was one thing that was very much like the most the I saw that to Moons he wants to have the control. He couldn't get control to me or to another person. And to be honest, I had the same problem.
Okay. Talk to us about that.
And he confront,
Confronted?
yeah, confronted me with my own anger and my own fear. And I
Okay, but let's just say
realized,
if everybody in the stable was also having trouble with him, and I presume that there were people who were employed to feed him, to muck him out his stable, were they all also angry and
no, no, no.
looking for control, or was he okay with some of these people?
No, no. He was most okay with me.
Okay,
So I could do the most things a little bit better than the other
okay,
people around him. But I realized that he confrontate confront me.
yeah, he was
Yeah.
confronting you.
Because I also was walking around with a lot of anger and a lot of fear. And
And
I
why was that? Why were you walking around with this anger and fear?
I think we had the same history.
Okay,
Because I had a history from my childhood that it was not okay to be myself. So there
mm-hmm,
were a lot of problems in the family,
mm-hmm,
and I'm a very honest person. I want to get what you see is what you get, and I
mm-hmm.
want to be honest, and then I'm in my power, even as a child. But it was not possible to talk about a lot of things. So I had to to like freeze. I was in a kind of freeze at that moment, also as a child.
Mm.
But I'm a tough girl, and I was successful in my work, and I was having a nice life, and I was happy, and so I never talked about it. But because of 2 moons, because of this horse, I realized, okay, I've got something to work out because we have the same problem.
Okay,
And I couldn't give the control to anyone else. I always wanted to have the control. And it's the
okay,
same with 2 moons. He wants to always wanted to have the control.
Okay.
So it was like,
So this culminated in a really big accident, right? So tell us about that.
yeah, I was riding him, and I was studying horse riding, and it was a school in Belgium, 3 year, and it was like a holistic dressage school. So I had a lot of interesting, how do you say it, lessons,
Okay.
and I have to practice for an like dressage competition kind of thing. And I did
Okay.
it with 2 moons. And somebody was, oh, my boyfriend, he was filming it. And so I said, oh, there, I'm going to gallop and blah, 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 blah. And suddenly he was bucking, and yeah, I fell off.
Okay.
And I stood up immediately, but I fainted because of the pain.
Okay.
And then, of course, they called the ambulance. I was in the hospital, and I couldn't walk for 2 months.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
So
what
I
happened?
had a lot of time to think.
Okay. And what had you done? What was the injury?
He dislocated my hip, so I couldn't walk.
Okay. That
It
was
was
the
too
hit.
painful. Yeah.
Right. So then you're parked on the couch.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So you're in
And
Petra parking.
everyone was finished with this horse, of course,
Yes.
because I could. In 2 months, I had a broken arm, and I was just out of the how do you say,
Cast. The cast.
the car for 2 weeks, and then
Okay.
I dislocated my hip. So I have to call my boss, and I said, I'm so sorry, but I fell off my horse, and I don't know when I can get to work. But no worries, my laptop is on in bed. I'm going to work. No worries. I will work even harder than I was on the company side. But everyone was finished with this horse.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what next?
Then I realized for 2 months, okay, am I triggering with this horse, where that he's going, yeah, going to be that dangerous. And then I realized, yeah, I have to work on myself.
Okay. So what happens then? You work on yourself?
Yeah, so I went to therapy, and I went to courses, and I did a lot of self development.
Mm.
And I understand why it was a problem for me to give the control to somebody else.
Okay.
And I realized that after I started working on myself, there was a major change in the relationship with my horse.
Okay. What happened to show up? Give us an example.
There was so much more connection.
Okay.
And I'm a very restless person. I'm
Mm.
very patient. And there was a time that my boyfriend was working in the stable. He was cleaning the stable, and one of the friends on the stable came to him and said, I saw Petra working with her horse, and I've never seen somebody working with a horse so quiet, so relaxed, so in love, so in such a beautiful connection.
Hmm.
And my boyfriend thought, is this about Petra? I really have to go and have a look, because this is not how I know Petra. So there is something inside myself. There was changing something inside myself, and I found like more rest in myself.
Okay.
Is that clear? The
Yes,
question?
yes, yes, yes. More rest, more contentment, perhaps. Okay. So things get better. And then what happens?
And then I could ride him. I could load him on the trailer, even on my own.
Mm.
So there's a major change in this horse. And then the first questions came. Oh, you had a very difficult horse, but he's so easy now. Can you help me? Because I also have a difficult horse. So I stopped working in the advertisement agency, and I
Hmm.
began my own company, my own business.
And that's when Two Moons Equestrian was born.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I think in 2002 to 2003.
All right.
Yeah.
So again, just keep going with the story because it gets interesting.
Yeah, so I started my own company and I began to train horses, and I liked it so much. Yeah, I really liked it. And and in at that time I was working, yeah, all day with horses, and I noticed some of the horses, not all horses, but with working with some of the horses, there became like a special connection.
Hmm.
And sometimes with horses that were really aggressive or attacking people.
Hmm.
And when I was able to stand next to the horse and to touch them by the chest and by the, oh, how do I say it in English? It's just before the saddle.
The vidus, the wither.
Yes, yeah. When I touched the horse, there was in the beginning there was a lot of like l- it looks like there was an inner stress of the horse,
Hmm.
and a sort, yeah, stress, angriness, and yeah, not able to make the communication, don't trust me enough to make
Yeah.
communication. And then suddenly it was changing and the horse became soft, relaxed, soft in the face, soft in the body, and there was a like a really deep connection. And I have a lot of movies and videos from that kind of work, so it's easier to show it than to tell it.
Hmm. Almost like a kind of reassuring body work,
Yeah,
effectively.
yeah,
Yeah.
and I realized, that's something special, and yeah, but it was there, and there, after that, yeah, special connection, the horse changes completely, not
Mhm.
only with me, but also with his owner. And in interaction with his owner, he wasn't angry anymore, not aggressive anymore. There was a major change. But I couldn't explain. So everybody asked me, "What are you doing?" I said, "I don't do anything. I'm only present. But I don't do something specific."
Okay.
Thought. I thought.
Okay. But it turns out you were doing something specific.
I didn't knew for a long time, Rupert, because everybody asked me, "What are you doing? Are you spiritual? Are you working on an energetic way?" And I said, "No, I'm not spiritual. And no, I'm just here. I'm just present. I work with a lot of love. I don't use pressure or don't force horses to do something. I just give them the chance to work together." And to get a better relationship together. And I did it for I think 20 years, but I didn't dare to show the videos. So I only
Okay.
showed the video to my students. Oh, I haven't told yet that I started a school.
Okay. But yet, if you couldn't explain what you were doing, how could you start a school? Because you need you need a curriculum. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. No, I to be honest, in 2010, I had so much work. I was working 7 days a week. I couldn't handle the work. So clients asked me, "Don't you have anything else to work with?" And I thought, no, I I, I don't have anyone else to work with, because I do it so different than the normal natural, well, horsemanship methods. So
Yes.
I work a little bit different. So
So this is going to be my question. So when people are listening to your story and they say, okay, Petra went to Australia to learn natural horsemanship. Then she gets this difficult horse. Then she goes to a holistic dressage place, which is probably using a fair bit of natural horsemanship in the way that we all think of as natural horsemanship. And now suddenly you're not doing that anymore. So question number one, why did you stop doing the normal natural horsemanship? And question two, what did you do instead?
To be honest, I looked at everyone everywhere. I tried everything, but and I still use some of the methods or some of the how do you say it?
Like the round pen and that sort of thing.
Yes, but the round pen I don't use it for the. This is something that's funny because I don't use it to train the horses. I
Mm,
use the round pen to train the students on their body language.
okay.
So it's
Okay.
different.
So what did you learn about body language that was different to the normal natural horsemanship?
Because if you work with horses and you are aware of every part of your body, like your hand, your is it open, is it closed, is it round, are your movements round or like this or and I when I'm working with horses, especially when I work with horses that don't want to be touched
Mm,
or doesn't trust anyone anymore, it's important that I use the body language that is okay for the horse. And
okay.
every little signal can be too much for a horse like that.
Yeah.
And so I teach my students, yeah, what's the difference between when your shoulder is a little bit like this or like this when you are standing in front of the horse, or your
Mm,
the point of your toes, it can stop the horse. Even a running horse, it can stop the horse when your the point of your toes, the point of
mm,
your toes is in front of the horse,
mm,
or you can even stop the horse when you are lunging. So
mm.
it's very interesting. Yeah.
Okay. So you begin to teach students how to handle their body language in a way that wins trust, does not trigger the horse negatively. This I can understand. Was the hip dislocation your last trip to the hospital with 2 moons?
Yes, but
Okay, so
not the last with horses.
okay, so
Also, I
talk to
fall.
so
I also broke my neck.
okay, so you that's that's quite a big thing to leave out. All right, so how did you break your neck? Under what circumstances? And then how did that inform your work and what you do?
Yeah. That's what was not with my horse 2 moons. It was with a
Okay,
young horse, riding a young horse.
how many years after your last accident with 2 moons did you break your neck?
I think 10 years later, I think.
10 years later. Okay, so you have this success, you have this breakthrough with 2 moons. People start noticing, people start sending their horses to you. At first, you can't explain what you're doing, but then you start to look at your body and realize, oh, I see, maybe I can show people how to move their bodies in a way with a horse that helps the horse to win trust.
Yeah.
This is successful for a while, and then you break your neck. So how? Because by now you
It's
know
a
how to really handle horses. What goes wrong?
yeah, yeah. To be honest, I really like my work.
Mm,
So that's also, I don't know the English word, but I really like my work. So I'm working, 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 working.
yeah.
But sometimes I don't listen to my body.
Okay.
And that was a real signal, Petra, don't work so hard. Because at that time I was living in France. I
Mm,
had my own place in France, and
okay. So you become really successful enough with this whole horse rehab thing to to get your own place in France and run a business there. Right.
yeah.
Okay. How does it happen? What was the circumstances of the accident? Just talk to us about the accident.
Yeah. It was a young horse, and to be honest, I worked for 7 weeks. I had a school. The school was in the Netherlands,
Mm,
and there were 3 years of schooling. So it was very intensive for the students. 3 years
mm,
with 15 modules. And
Okay.
two of the 15 modules are organized in France. And one of the modules was like working on your body language. And the other module was working on your behavior patterns. So a part of the schooling is working on yourself
Yeah.
and personal development. So I was working in France with all the students 7 weeks long with no free days. So it was very, very.
The people have to take 7 weeks out of their life
No,
to
no,
come.
no, 1 week, but I had
Okay.
seven
Ah, okay.
different
Got it.
groups.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then the last group was finished and I was free.
Mm,
And I thought I was, and the next morning I had up and I thought, oh, I'm so tired. But I have an appointment with Jean Paul to ride his horse. And with Wart to ride the two young horses. But I was so tired and I felt, I don't, I don't have the feeling, I don't, yeah. Normally I'm really happy to work. But at
yeah.
that time I thought, but the social feeling of, I, yeah, I have an appointment, I have to do
Hmm.
it.
Sure.
Yeah.
The
So
obligation.
so I went.
Professional. Yeah.
Yes, so I went to the two horses, and one of the horses was bucking, and he kicked me off, and I felt on the ground with my chin on the ground, but I had a lot of. It was fast, so I was right like with my chin on the ground, and then I broke my neck, and yeah, I, my inside of my mouth was, how do you say it? Like,
Born.
yeah, torn. Yeah.
Yeah. Ow.
Yeah, so and then I was for 4 months in a harness.
Okay.
Yeah. So already had a lot of time to think.
Okay. And what was the result of those thoughts?
That I have to be to take care a little bit more about myself and less for all the other, animals, but also for my family and friends. Because sometimes, once a friend called me and says, "Do I have to buy a problem horse to make an appointment with you?"
Okay. Okay.
And she was right. Because when she asked me, "Oh, do you have time to go to like for dinner or something?" I said, "No, no, no. I'm so
Busy with, yeah.
busy working, la la." And if there was somebody who says, "Oh, I have a real big problem with my horse," I always I was always able to make time.
Right.
So I was running too hard, working too hard, and I forgot myself.
Okay. Let me just ask you, as a horseman, though, some practical questions about the young horse with whom you had this accident. Did you have a sense of, yeah, maybe I shouldn't get up on this horse?
But I didn't listen.
Why do you think you got up? And today, if you were with the same horse today,
Yeah,
would you say this horse is not ready for a rider now?
yeah,
Why did you think then? Because by then you had accrued quite a lot of experience.
yeah.
What made you think, yeah, it's an okay decision to get on this horse?
Yeah, I think maybe because I was tired and I was not concentrated good enough because I'm working with horses still and I'm
Mm,
fast because when a horse is doing something I have a very good and very fast reaction.
mm,
And and I fell off the horse at that time and I
mm.
fell on my chin. Where were my hands? Normally you protect yourself with your hands. So I was too tired. I was not in my power. It was such
Do you think if you had been less tired and more in your power,
yeah.
it would have been okay to be on the horse? Or do you think in any situation that horse was not ready?
No, I think it was a combination. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And I was not concentrated enough. It was like maybe I had the feeling of will ride to two horses and then I'm free for a couple of days.
Were you surprised that the horse threw you, or did you think, yeah, I kind of knew that would happen?
Yeah, no, I was not surprised.
Okay.
It was hard. It was hard.
So, okay. So then you have this accident, and this must have been quite difficult for your ego because now you're the professional, you're the big professional, you've got a school, you're the one telling people how to be with horses. You have this place in France, and now you get chucked off and you have this accident.
Yeah.
And okay, you said, okay, I need to take time for me, etc. Sure, but there's more.
Yeah.
When you came out of that cast, the harness, and you said, okay, I'm continuing with my career. Forget the human side for a moment. Let's just talk about the horse side for a moment. What fundamentally changed in your evolution after that neck break? You must have then said, okay, I need to rethink a little bit
Yeah.
how I'm doing this. What were the main things that you thought, okay, now I change? I changed from this to this.
Yeah.
What did you change to?
If you're in the equine assisted field, or if you're considering a career in the equine assisted field, you might want to consider taking one of our 3 neuroscience-backed equine assisted programs. Horseboy Method, now established for 20 years, is the original equine assisted program specifically designed for autism, mentored by and developed in conjunction with Dr. Temple Grandin and many other neuroscientists. We work in the saddle with younger children, helping them create oxytocin in their bodies and neuroplasticity in the brain. It works incredibly well. It's now in about 40 countries. Check it out. If you're working without horses, you might want to look at movement method, which gets a very, very similar effect, but can also be applied in schools, in homes. If you're working with families, you can give them really tangible exercises to do at home that will create neuroplasticity when they're not with you. Finally, we have taquine equine integration. If you know anything about our programs, you know that we need a really high standard of horsemanship in order to create the oxytocin in the body of the person that we're working with, child or adult. So this means we need to train a horse in collection, but this also has a really beneficial effect on the horse's well-being. And it also ends your time conflict where you're wondering, oh my gosh, how am I going to condition my horses and maintain them and give them what they need, as well as serving my clients? Taquine equine integration, aimed at a more adult client base, absolutely gives you this.
Yeah. The biggest lesson I've learned was listening to my intuition
Mm.
and do what my intuition is telling me. And I think before that I was listening to everyone who needs help. And now and after that accident I really listened to my intuition.
Yeah, because this is interesting to me. It doesn't sound to me like you were making an intellectual or an ego decision to get on that horse. It almost sounds to me like, and this is a really interesting, complex situation. It sounds to me like you were actually coming from a place of a decision from the heart, meaning I want to help.
Yeah.
I feel an obligation to help. And listening to the heart, but not the gut.
Yeah.
And that is, I think, a really interesting distinction, because normally when we have these sorts of conversations, it frequently goes to people saying, well, I listened too much to the head.
Yeah.
I didn't listen enough to the heart, or I didn't listen enough to the gut. But I know what you mean. I also have made decisions sometimes that were too much heart-based, that ended up being just as wrong
Yeah.
as if they had been too much head-based. that the gut is still really the most powerful factor.
Yeah.
We often think, oh, a decision from the heart, that's a good decision. It is sometimes, but it isn't always. And whereas gut kind of is always, which makes us have to face the possibility, the probability that the gut is the most important part of the brain.
Yeah.
And actually the heart is secondary and perhaps the intellect is third. But I just wanted to draw attention to this because, one would have a lot of people saying heart-based horsemanship,
Mm.
or, we do a lot of work with the Heart Math Institute. So we think heart good, and heart is good,
It is. Yeah.
but it's not enough by itself. And that is interesting.
Yeah, it is.
So, okay, you go back in and you say, all right, I need to be now more intuitive, more gut-based.
Yeah.
So how do you change your approach? What are the changes that we would see?
Yeah, to be honest, I was really scared because for 4 months I lived alone in France with horses, with a dog, with all kind of animals. I was alone in the harness.
Where was the boyfriend by this time?
The boyfriend I had when I bought 2 moons,
Yeah.
he died.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay because it's also a part of my life.
Mm.
Just before we wanted to move to France, we
Okay.
found a house to move to France, from the Netherlands to France, and we wanted to start a company in France. And we found a beautiful place, and decided, okay, we are going to move, and we went to all the family and friends with photos, and said, okay, we are going to move. Look, beautiful. And then at one night he get a heart attack and he died.
Shit.
Yes, it was shit. Yeah. Yeah. And he had a company, I had a company. So next day I had to run 2 companies.
Okay.
And I was planning to move to France, but it was impossible because we wanted to buy an old house and he was a handyman.
Okay.
So the future was a little bit different by then.
Yes.
And so I struggled to get rid of his company, and I gave it away to one of his employees.
Mm-hmm.
And then after I think 7-8 months, I decided, okay, I'm going alone with the 2 horses to France. So I moved to France. So that's why there was no husband.
Yes. Got it.
Yes.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
So
to
now
be
you are.
honest, to be honest, when I broke my neck, I was just in love with another husband, and he's
Yeah.
now my husband.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. But when you broke your neck, you'd fallen in love with this man, but you were not living with him at that point.
No. We were
Okay.
just, I think, for a couple of months together.
Okay.
Yeah. So I
Okay.
was alone
Mm.
in France. I didn't have income for
Aye.
4 months. I couldn't work.
Yeah.
And I was afraid, can I ever do my work again? Because
Mm.
will I have a headache?
Mm.
How do I get out of this harness?
Mm.
But yeah, no problem. When the harness was out, I
Mm.
felt good and I could work. So I was really happy that I was able to work to get to continue all the lessons and
All right.
yeah.
But now you start working in a different way, and how do you change your curriculum? What are you telling your students at this point?
Yeah, I, 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 I take my students. I will tell them a lot about the mistakes I make because I
Mm.
also always say to them, I didn't have the 50 modules. I have had I made a lot of mistakes.
Mm.
So I was in the after some trainings in the car with the mascara on my chin because I made mistakes. I had to learn a lot. And now I tell my students, you don't have to make that mistake because I can tell you exactly, how to be powerful, how to be good for yourself, but also good for the horse. So you have to take care of yourself and you have to take care of the horse and to take care of the owner of the horse. So it's like a combination of things.
So can you give us an example? Naturally, our curiosity is there. Give us an example that you would tell your students of a time you ended up with raccoon eyes with the mascara running down your face, that you would say to your students, now you don't have to do this. Give us an example of that situation.
Now, one of the examples is that when you're training horses, it's not always successful.
Mm,
And in the learning curve of a horse, but also the learning curve of human beings,
mm,
it's like a line is going uphill, like this.
mhm.
But there are always, I don't know the English word, but there are always like holes
Yes,
in the line.
yes. Peaks and valleys. Yeah.
Yes, yes. And that's a part of the learning curve. So,
Right. So what, okay, give us a concrete example
yeah.
and how one would avoid
So
it.
when you are training like a horse with trailer loading problems, and you're going there and you're successful, the horse is going into the trailer, and it's his choice to get in, and the owners are very happy. And then there is a situation that the owner is calling you and says, okay, the horse doesn't load anymore and you didn't do the right job, la 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 la. And then I always says, it's a part of the learning system. So it's not that you didn't do your job well, but go again, train the horse, train the owner, and let them experience how to get back on the learning curve.
Mm,
And
okay.
it's part of the training. So it's of course it can be very disappointing at that time, but it's a part of training.
Right. I know that you specialize now a lot in loading horses, difficult, impossible horses.
Yeah.
And everyone is always intrigued by this because we have all been in the position where it's getting dark or it is dark
You have to go home.
and you
It's
can't go.
raining.
Yeah. And give us your 1, 2, 3, your standard way of saying, first, what do you do when somebody is in this situation? Because I know you could say, well, they should have prepared, but we know that often this does not happen. So let's say you get a call from somebody who's sitting somewhere at night saying, I can't load the horse. Petra, come. So let's start with that situation. And then let's go to your conversation with that person afterwards, perhaps the next week, and say, hey, listen, what you need to do with this horse is this, this, and this. So let's start with the crisis. You get the call. They call Petra. Petra shows up. It's 12 o'clock at night. The horse has been not loading since 9 o'clock. You know,
It happened so many times.
right. Talk us through the situation step by step.
Yeah, yeah. What happened in a situation like that is that everyone is angry, everyone is stressed, everyone is having
Tired.
fights with each other
Yes.
because you are there in 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock. You want to
Yes.
be at home, but you are
Yeah.
still there on the stable with a horse that doesn't want to load on the trailer. So
Yes.
it's a situation nobody's happy.
Yeah.
Everyone is angry about the horse because, yeah, it's because of the horse that you are there. So everyone is stressed and there is a lot of disharmony.
Yes.
And when I come, I tell the owner with her husband or friends or whatever, I tell, okay, I understand. You are stressed. I understand. This is not a nice situation. I've been there many, many times. So it's very important that I understand their feelings.
Mm.
So you can get you can take it a little bit away by,
Some compassion.
yes. So it's very important to have compassion and understanding for all the stress and the disharmony and the fights that the owner is having with her husband or children or whatever.
Right.
Okay, then there is a little bit more, okay, a little bit better feeling. And then
Okay.
I'm going to the horse, and the horse is thinking, okay, there's number 30 who's going to try to get me into the trailer. So the horse thinks, okay, Petra is the same as everyone who's trying this evening. And she will get angry, she will use pressure, she will force me. And I'm going to the horse and I really tell the horse, okay, I understand that you are angry or that you are having fear for the trailer or
Do you
whatever.
say this with your voice out
Yes.
loud as if you were talking to a
Yeah.
human? Okay.
Yeah.
So you
I
express the
always talk.
emotion,
I
you
always
say it.
talk to horses.
Yeah.
Always.
Yes. I think this is
Because
an important distinction. Yeah.
because I don't know for sure if the horse will understand me or he will get it. But when he is
Yes.
understanding me, it's a way it's stupid that I don't see it.
Yeah.
So I always talk to horses. And I will tell the horse, okay, I understand that you are angry or that you don't trust anyone anymore, but I'm not here to force you. I'm not here to correct you in a way. I'm here to help you.
Yes.
I'm here to help you. And that's the only reason why I'm here. I'm here to help you.
Okay.
And I work with a lot of gentleness, a lot of love, a lot of honesty to the horse. And the biggest problem with anyone in that kind of situation is that they want to have the horse into the trailer.
Sure.
So if you like when you are with a little child, 4 years old, you go to the like the swimming pool and you start on the highest jump.
Diving board. Yeah.
Yes, dive. You start on the highest diving board and you push the child. 4 years old, you push the child. That's what we do with horses.
Yeah.
We don't start in the child run
Indeed.
pool.
No, we understand that there has not been the correct preparation, but
Yeah.
you are there and you're saying these nice things to the horses,
Yes.
but it's midnight. The horse needs to go in the trailer.
Yeah.
What are you going to do?
I start with making connection with the horse. A
Yeah.
little bit of groundwork, not the groundwork you are working with, but groundwork on a way that I am clear about my personal space.
Okay. So that, talk us through exactly what you do.
Yeah.
You put a halter on the horse, you move him in a circle around you.
No, I don't use like the joint of something. No, I only use rope and a halter
Yes.
and a rope like
But is the horse
Oh.
moving his legs?
no.
Is he moving?
Only the only thing I will ask the horse is when I'm turning the rope towards the horse,
Mm.
I'm only asking him to back up.
Okay.
Yeah. And when he does a little bit of backup, only 1 centimeter,
Mm.
I stop and I reward with my
Okay.
horse. And when the horse is realizing, oh, I only have to back up a little bit, and he respects my personal space, then there is something going to happen in the relationship between me and the horse.
Yeah.
And most of the time, the horse is getting a little bit softer, a little bit, more open to learn. Because normally a horse like that is not open to learn anymore.
Mm.
And I have to make the horse open to learn and to be.
Okay. So you're talking to him, you're touching him, you back him up a little bit, and then?
And then I'm going to the trailer.
Mm.
And when I do that, I don't want to go into the trailer immediately, but I start like 5 or 6 meters in front of the trailer and I
Mhm.
ask him 1 step forward. And I said, oh, beautiful. Okay, go backwards again.
Okay.
And I ask him a little bit, oh, 1 step forward. Oh, beautiful. Go backwards again.
Mhm.
Not because some of the natural horsemanship methods use the backup as a punishment. I don't use it as a punishment. So I reward the horse. And I said, it's beautiful. You can go backwards. And what I'm doing with that is I create a safe space.
Mm.
And I move the safe space a little bit forward to the ramp of the trailer.
Mm.
So what I'm doing is I make a very safe situation with the horse, And when the horse trusts me enough, it's okay to go 1 step forward, 2 steps backwards, 3 steps forward, 1 step backward. And then we are going to like a yo-yo in and out of the trailer. And constantly I make contact with the horse. So it's very, very important that there will be contact. And I'm talking to the horse all the time. And then
Yeah, I've seen you work. And by the way, for the people watching and listening, one of the reasons I was convinced about Petra was she came to visit us, and we have a horse. Doesn't belong to us, but who lives on the property. And we had not yet done much with it. And it was a tricky horse to catch. And we had in our minds said, we probably should get around to doing a little more with this horse, but we're kind of busy. And Petra's there. We said, okay, Petra, why don't you go and do your thing with that horse? Because it would be really useful for us to watch. And what I want to say to the people listening to this or watching was the way in which Petra used her voice was so unmistakably reassuring and also unmistakably directed at that horse that the horse became very curious about Petra. And Petra made friends with the horse from a distance in a way that was very clear, as if she was sort of an old friend seeing another old friend from across the pub. I'm like, hey, how's it going? But without trying to make that person, pulling that person by the arm to come over. And I was watching, I thought, that's cool. And so what happened was, of course, the horse became interested in Petra. And at a certain point, approached Petra. And then there was a very gradual process of Petra reaching out or letting the horse sniff, but not asking the horse to be caught at all, until the horse basically caught itself. And then Petra would then catch the horse and let it go, and catch the horse and let it go, and put the halter half on and then take it off. And the horse became so like, what, are you going to catch me then? And Petra was like, well, I don't know. We're kind of hanging out, aren't we? And constantly addressing the horse by name, Eddie. Ah, Eddie.
Yeah, Eddie.
And the way in which you said Eddie, suddenly I was like, I want to be Eddie. I want someone using my name like that. And eventually the horse just shoves its nose into the halter and like, you're taking me. And then you still took the halter off and said, well, I don't know, Eddie. I don't know if that's really what you want. And you did that over, I want to say, these things you always think they're going on for longer than they are. But I'd say it was about 12 minutes, perhaps.
Yeah.
And I can tell you, Petra, that horse is very easy to catch now.
Yeah.
It translated over. So I just want the listeners to know that we're not talking about some abstract here, that there's a reason why I wanted her on the show. And we're going to come in a minute to her recommendations for your staff, your people, your volunteers, particularly your volunteers in your therapeutic context, to how they can massively improve the situation with the horses. Because we all know that one of the real problems in the therapeutic riding sphere is that most people have to rely on volunteers. And often there can end up being negative dynamics between the volunteers and the horses. I have seen this so many times, particularly in centers where the horses are living in stables, not outside, not in herds, and their bodily and emotional needs and pains are not really being addressed. They're just going round and round the arena, and their job is to be quiet. And so they end up taking this pain and frustration out on the volunteers and the handlers. They're often good with the kids, but yeah. So I think we all know that this is chronic. Within the industry. So, but let's go back to this nighttime farmyard. Okay. So now you've moved the horse's safe space towards, and now perhaps to the ramp of the trailer. Now what?
It's the same as with Eddie, Rupert, because when I when I put on the halter and I'm finished, he didn't learn anything.
Yeah.
In the 12 minutes I work with him, I make him curious. What are you doing? And I make it fun. When I work with horses, I will translate. No, no, not translate. When I work with horses, I want to have a horse that he didn't want to go like Eddie. He didn't want to be catched. He didn't want a halter on.
Mm.
After 12 minutes, he only wanted to be catched and wanted to halter on. And that's the same with the trailer. When I'm finished, the horse only wants to get into the trailer. He doesn't want the trailer out anymore.
So everyone will be wondering, because we all have our own experiences with this. There's always that moment, you know, when you're trailering a difficult horse and you're like, okay, this is the experience we're having. I learned very early, don't resist it. Rather say to yourself, this is the experience we're having. This is okay. And if we're here for a long time, well, we like being with horses. So here we are with a horse. And to try not to have a time pressure, we must get home by this day. But sometimes time pressures are there, even if you don't want them. So we all know there's that golden moment when the horse goes in and we're like, thank God. Yes, close the gate, get that ramp up. For you, what's the pattern when that golden moment normally happens?
I don't understand.
Okay, so you have a bit of a system.
Yeah.
So there's probably a part of you by now that can more or less predict
Oh, yeah. Okay.
when and how it's going to happen, which I think would be very nice for people to hear, because maybe they don't have this same experience and therefore they don't have the same confidence or faith. Talk us through when, okay, there will be this little part of you that says, I think in about 5 minutes he'll go in. Yeah. What changes in the horse's behavior to make you think, oh yeah, it's happening now?
Oh, I can see it. So most of the time I can see it yeah. It's like a mental decision of the horse, because the horse refuses for a long time. And then I know, then if you look at the horse, I can see on the eyes and on the head of the horse. And when I'm with students, I always say, okay, look at this, look at the blinking of the eye, look at the ears. Now he's thinking and he's going to make a choice. And most of the time he makes the choice, no, I'm not going into the trailer. But within like a few minutes, he will make a choice. And if you, I have a lot of video material, Rupert. And once we met each other, you said, "What are you doing different?" And I said, "Yeah, you don't have to. You shouldn't listen to what I'm saying, but you should see."
Yeah, but we are talking, so
we are
frankly, you have to say
so
something.
maybe it's possible for the listeners to show some videos later on, or on the social.
Yeah, but you can describe. You
Yeah.
can
Yeah.
describe the experience.
Yeah. Yeah, it's possible to see when a horse is thinking about, okay, am I doing it or am I doing it not? And when he says, when the horse decides, I'm not doing it, it's clear. But you can see when the horse is on a moment of choice. And that's the most interesting part. And what is very important, when the horse is in that part of the training, you don't force him, you don't ask him. He
Right.
has to make his own choice.
Here is a question. At that point where he makes the choice to go in the trailer, do you close the door or do you say, actually, let's go out of the trailer again?
Yes.
Okay.
And then the owner, he gets mad.
Okay. Do you tell the owner in advance,
Yeah.
this is what I'm going to do?
Yeah.
So that
Otherwise,
you,
otherwise I'm not helping because
yes, yeah,
I'm not honest to the horse because
sure.
the horse is not ready yet for closing the ram.
So when you arrive, when they say, "Hey, Petra, will you come?" Do you say on the phone, "Listen, when this horse goes in the first time, I will actually take him out again. Are you okay with that?"
Yeah.
Or they say, "No, I'm not okay with that because I need to get
Yeah.
home to look after my sick mother or something." But in general, you inform the owner it's going to be like this. Okay. So then the horse goes in the trailer the first time and then you surprise him. You say, "Okay, you can go out again."
But to be honest, Rupert, some horses, they need time to think about and to make the right decision.
Mm,
So the training is taking a little bit more time,
mm,
and it's depending on the character of the horse. Because
yeah,
I look at the character of the horse to see what kind of training methods he needs.
right.
Because some horses I will close it.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
But not the angry ones, not the sensible ones, because they will kick. They will
Sensible
come
as
out.
sensitive. Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
will come out the trailer. That is very dangerous because they can get an accident because
Yeah.
they are in panic.
Yeah.
But there are characters that says, okay, this is like a no nonsense character, and
Right.
a horse that says, yeah, I'm not afraid, I'm not angry, but I don't want to go into the trailer.
Right.
So the more easier characters, that's okay to close it.
Okay. So now you're dealing with a horse. They're not the easy character, but they've gone in the first time.
Yeah.
Then you take them out again straight away. Yeah.
Yeah, reward, like he won Olympics.
Yeah.
Reward, but very very good. I'm so proud of you. And now we're going for a second time.
Okay.
And what you can do once, you can do twice.
Okay.
And it's for me as a trainer, but it's also for the horse.
Okay.
And
Okay. Normally, do you have more or less of a pattern of the number of times, more or less, that you might take the horse out of the trailer again in that situation? Is it
oh yeah.
more or less 5, more or less 10?
Now, in a situation when somebody wants to go home and but for me, it's more important not the counting of the times.
Yeah, but nonetheless, there are
Yeah.
patterns that emerge.
For me, it's more
Is
like
it more than 500? Is it less than 3?
five, between 5 and 10, I think.
Yeah. Okay. That's rash.
But for me, it's important that the horse, he is making the choice to get in. Because a horse that is making the choice itself to get into the trailer will not have resistance when you are riding with the trailer. And a
Yes.
horse that is forced is always angry, scared, sensible, and that can be dangerous.
It can,
I saw
absolutely.
horses came out of the roof
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
because they are forced and they closed the trailer.
It's interesting to me. I was working with a horse today that at a different place who decided he did not want to go into the arena.
Are you?
And I said, "It's not a problem. Let's do our work outside here." But I think probably at a certain point, he will probably go in, but it's really okay with me with what we're going to do now, because honestly, I can do it right here. And you know the work that we usually do, these old circular dressage patterns on the ground, not on the horse. So, and they do some interesting neurological change in the horse's brain. We know this. And it was the second time with the horse. And he was actually, he's a very nice horse. But he was just saying, "Okay, I'm big and I'm not going to do it." So I just said, "That's fine. Let's just do our thing here." And then he's like, "Well, then I'm going to, be bossy to you about it." I said, "Well, that's okay. You can be bossy to me, but can you just be bossy to me around me in this pack, please?" And, "Oh, good boy," just like you, and lots of love, lots of hugs. And we do some patterns and we do some patterns and we do some patterns. And then I see, do you want to go in? No, he doesn't want to go. It's okay, well, no problem. We can do the workout here. It doesn't matter. We can, da, da, da. And then perhaps after it was, I think after, I would say 20 minutes. And I'd actually forgotten that I really particularly even wanted to go into the arena. And then I saw the door. I said, let's just give it a try. And of course, he walked in. Yeah. And I find that it's often that giving up of attachment. When I'm starting to train a horse in anything, I have this little thing I say to myself. I say, it'll take 2 years. It will probably take about 3 weeks. But if I say to myself, it's a little trick in my brain. If I say to myself, it'll take 2 years, then something in me relaxes. Yeah. And I'm like, it's okay. And I know that even though it's a trick on myself, something in my body language changes. Something in my emotional frequency changes, and the horse picks up on it and relaxes. And then ironically, it goes faster, but I still have to tell myself this. I have another trick I do when I'm jumping and I'll come into a fence and I'm feeling a little bit scared, or I can't really quite see the good place to jump, to take off, but I'm committed. I start looking at the sky and I said, I wonder what kind of cloud that is. What weather system is that? Or what kind of bird? That's a sparrowhawk. Oh, that's interesting. And the fence comes to me and then, we're okay. And I know intellectually that I am tricking myself, but it works because my attention goes away from the problem, I suppose. I stop feeding the problem with my attention. And the problem often tends to resolve itself. And I wondered where this came from, because I was not always like this. And I realized it was with autism, that I realized that with, particularly the nonverbal younger kids, you cannot have any attachment. And initially in the early days of Horseboy, because we had been, because there had been success with my son, naturally people and me hoped for the same success with others. And most of the time it was there. But it was there mostly when I said to the parent, usually, I honestly don't know if we can get anywhere here. But what we can do is have a very nice time together. That we can do. And sure, we now know the neuroscience and okay. But that's still not a guarantee. Are you okay with that? And then the parent saying to me, and that's why I asked you, do you say to the horse owner before you go, are you okay with the fact that A, the horse may not go in, and B, if he goes in, I will take him out again, at least a few times probably, because this will be better. Yeah. And then the owner, the horse owner, has some choice. They have some agency, they have a participation. They're not just waiting for you to do your thing, solve the problem. And then we're working together with partners. Okay, so here's my third question before we go into the therapeutic context. Sometimes, occasionally, the horse, I'm sure, does not go into the trailer. So when you walk into that yard at midnight, I presume you have a plan in your mind for what is plan C if the horse doesn't go in at all, and we need the horse to stay here for the night and we need to make a plan. And then what do we do? Do we leave him with the trailer? Do we take the trailer away and home? Do we keep the trailer? Do we make a little field for him, with an electric fence, which includes the trailer with the ramp down? Do we feed him in there in the morning? What do we do? So has that happened? And if so, what did you do? What was the plan?
Yeah, it did happen. Not so much. Maybe in all those years, once or twice.
Yeah.
The horse, yeah.
But there's always that exception, right? Yeah.
Of course.
So what did you do in that exception?
If you're a horse nerd, and if you're on this podcast, I'm guessing you are, then you've probably also always wondered a little bit about the old master's system of dressage training. If you go and check out our Helios Harmony program, we outline there step by step exactly how to train your horse from the ground to become the dressage horse of your dreams in a way that absolutely serves the physical, mental, and emotional well-being of the horse and the rider. Intrigued? Like to know more? Go to our website, heliosharmony.com. Check out the free introduction course. Take it from there.
In one of the two, the horse went into the stable because there were only stables over there. And I went the other day and to load him. And then we had a little bit more time. There was no stress. It wasn't dark. So it was much easier.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I think, yeah. And you left the trailer there, or the trailer went away and came back?
Don't know. I
Mm.
thought it was I don't know.
Mm.
I think we left it there.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And sometimes
Intuitively,
it's
it
like-
would seem to me a good idea to leave it there.
Yeah.
But yeah, what do I know? All right. So the reason I wanted to ask that question is because I always want to ask myself before I work with a horse or before I work with a person, what's my plan going to be if I'm not successful? Because if I am attached to success, we all know that's not a good thing. And success might take a short time or it might take a very long time. And it could be that the success actually does not happen with me. It could be that I am simply a part of the journey and somebody else is going to have the breakthrough moment, you know. So I have to ask myself, am I okay with this? Particularly when I'm working with a human, because I am emotionally attached. I'm more emotionally attached with a human than I am with a horse. With a horse, if I know probably at some point it will work because people have been training horses since the late Stone Age, and you know, most of the time it sort of happens. But when it's somebody's child, it's a very different thing.
Yeah.
And humans are tricky. So in a funny way, I guess what I'm saying is I have to let myself off the hook and tell myself, this isn't some contest to show that my method works or that I am a good practitioner. It's really okay if I'm just some small part of this child's journey or this person's journey, but I want to be a positive part of that. So at the very least, what do I need to do? So for me, I will engage in curiosity. What does this person love? And can I engage in that activity somehow?
Yeah.
Even if, for example, it's a computer game, we can't go into the computer, but I can print the characters from the computer and laminate and hang them in the trees and walk underneath them and talk about them. I can do that. You know, I can find a way to engage. And if I can find something that the horse likes, I can go with this. All right. So now let's move it to the therapeutic context. So let's say I was running a therapeutic horse business and conflicts were arising between some volunteers and the horses. And these volunteers perhaps don't have so much horse experience, or they actually have a lot of horse experience, but it's still going wrong. And maybe there is one person who has a lot of horse experience and they are just being too controlling, too bossy. And maybe there's somebody with no horse experience and they're being too passive. Or the other way around. and I need to come. I'm Petra. I mean, I don't want to insult you by saying you look like me, but I'm now inside Petra. And so I'm Petra. I go to this place and I realize that I have a complex situation in front of me because I have these differing human personalities. Some of them actually know quite a lot about horses, but there's still a problem. Others don't know so much about the horses. There's a problem, but perhaps they're more open. But I must serve all of these people, and I have one day to do it because the barn owner it's a non-profit. They can only afford me to come in for one day. Or you're doing it on a scholarship, but you can't give too many. So you're going in for a day, maybe on your own time. Talk us through that day.
Okay. I think it's the same as training horses because it's all about motivating and stimulating for the wanted behavior. So I think you have to find a way how to stimulate and motivate all all the all the all the people. So and I think that the one who it's like training horses. The one who is having who's like the leader of the group, the most experienced. I think it's important to show her that you are listening to her or him or her. Is it a woman or a man?
Good question. It's
Okay,
probably more likely to be a woman just
a
because
woman.
it's
Okay,
98%
so
female driven, the
yeah,
industry.
yeah. So it's very important that you will see her as the
Mm.
leader because she's probably the toughest one to train or to motivate or to stimulate. So, but and then you can when she is like when you have a better connection, a better understanding, then you can get the rest of the group. But I think it's always important. The one who's the most resistant in the group is the one who has the power to change the energy and to change the environment. So I always because I do the same. I have a schooling. I have very experienced students, and I also have like students who ride on a riding school, and that's a major difference.
Yes, it
But
is.
for me, there's no difference. They are equal for me.
Okay. When you need to win the confidence of the dominant one, how do you do that?
Yeah, I try to show that, okay, I will listening to you, I see you, I understand you, but you're not the only one. We have to do it with the whole group. So we are looking for a way that's good for everyone because we need each other. It's like a herd. We
Yeah.
need each other. So if you are not satisfied with this position, we are not satisfied. We need each other. So we need each other, and we all have our own task, and we work. We have to work together.
So
So
would you
then,
do any specific exercises with these people?
phew, yeah, maybe um, I don't know.
Well, let me give you,
Yeah,
perhaps it's better if I give you a situation.
yeah.
Okay. So let's say it's a standard therapeutic riding place where they are leading children on horses and the horses are starting to bite the handlers.
Oh,
This is a normal thing in many places. You're there for the day. What are you doing?
yeah. Okay, and the horses are starting to bite.
The handlers, the leaders,
Yeah.
not the kids. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. 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 Yeah. Then it's important to get clear. Why are the horses biting, and are they biting everyone or just a certain person? So I would have more. I would like to have more information about which horses bite. Do they bite everyone? Do they bite only one or two or three of the people who's working there? So yeah, and maybe
Let's say they bite only 2 or 3.
okay, Okay. Yeah, and then you can have a look at, okay, those two or three, are they not clear enough to the horse? Are they insecure? Are they doing something that is annoying the horse? It's all possible.
Right.
It's like a puzzle.
Let's say then you look at that and you realize it's all three of those things, that they are not clear, they are annoying the horse, but perhaps they don't know they're annoying the horse. I forget what the first one was that you said, but perhaps let's just go with those two things. They're annoying the horse and they're not clear. So
Yeah.
now what?
Yeah. Now, maybe and not, and it's separate then from the work with the children on the horses. But
Mm.
then I should give them like a learning lesson about body language and be clear
Okay.
to the horse, because maybe they are not clear, they are insecure, and the horse is like doesn't get the leading that he wants to have.
Okay.
And so then you can change the relationship between the human and the horse, and you can get the people more secure about what they could do when the horse is going to bite. Because if you don't know, if nobody tells you what to do, then you're standing there and you get
Mm.
bitten all the time.
Yeah. What would you tell them to do?
I should tell them to work on their body language. Like when you are insecure, you're mostly like your shoulders are a little bit lower. You're not standing up upright. So I would give them some lessons about body language,
Mm.
and also about being clear to the horse,
Mm.
and maybe make a little bit more contact with the horse before they are going to work together.
Mm.
Because maybe the horse is settled, and they're standing there, there's going a child on the horse, and there's no connection between the horse and the leader.
Mm.
So
Okay.
maybe
Yeah,
that's something to work with.
absolutely. And I think people do get put in this position. Now, let's say it's not necessarily something that the handler is doing, but let's say the horse is sour because it's not living in a way that is good for its mental health or emotional health. So let's say I often see this situation. The horse is stable too long, not getting enough time outside, not getting enough time with friends, despite the fact that so many podcasts like this talk about horses need the 3 Fs, friends, forage, and freedom, or whatever. We all know that this is not actually what you see most of the time. And horses that are standing in stables a lot, also, particularly if they're older, often are stiff. They often have some pain, just like we would.
Yeah.
And then there's mental and emotional stress that comes from just not being in the right environment. It's very difficult to tell a stable owner this.
Yeah.
But if that is the root of the problem, and we can see that there is a pattern in the stable because the horse is just not happy physically, mentally, how do you deal with that situation? Because that's a difficult one, because you've got to be sensitive to the economic situation. These people will say, well, we haven't got space. We can't afford space. We have to have the horses do many, many sessions because this is how the money comes in. Yeah, all of these reasons will be put forward. It's more convenient to have the horse there in the stable because he's clean. I can catch him. He's not covered in mud, etc., etc. But you can see, Petra goes in, yeah, but listen, we have to make a change here if we want a change in the behavior of the horses. How do you handle this? Because this is tricky.
Yeah, it is. It is. But it's always in my job, because sometimes the situation for the horse is not the best.
Mm.
and I cannot change all owners of the horses, and you cannot decide where because maybe they don't have the money, they don't have the
Right.
possibilities.
And one can't just point out a problem. I always
Yeah,
feel that if you're going to identify a problem, you do have to offer a solution.
yeah, yeah. And it's the same. Sometimes you see a horse that has to go into the trailer, like a horse that is like 1 meter 75, and
Mm.
they have a trailer. The older ones, they are 220 high, and then
Mm.
there's no space for the neck and for the ears.
Yeah.
And then the owner says, yes, but my other horse, he's even a little bit bigger. There's no problem at all. And I cannot decide for the owner of the horse, hey, you have to buy a bigger trailer. But I can say
Mm.
it, and I can say, you are paying me, you are spending a lot of money, time, and energy to teach your horse to get into the trailer. But
Mm.
if you're using this trailer, the problem will return.
Mm.
And then it's a waste of money. Then
Mm.
you better sell this trailer, and you have money to hire a trailer that is a little bit better. If
Mm.
you don't have the money to buy a new one, you have
Yeah.
money to rent it. But you can share some ideas.
Yes, exactly. I think this
Make
is
it
what it
better
comes
for the
down to.
horse.
So when I find that I'm in a place where the living conditions of the horse are not ideal, then usually I start looking for solutions. And as you know, one of my first solutions is always what we call crazy time in
Yeah,
my
yeah.
system, and all that means is playing in an arena, hopefully more than one horse, maybe up to 4 horses. If you have the space, a really big arena, it can be more, but it's usually 4 is about the max. And often that involves free jumping, but it doesn't have to, and not all horses can. So, but it involves going through obstacles on the ground without a handler,
Mhm.
playing and interacting with each other and letting off steam. And we find that horses that are not able to have so much outside time together benefit from what we call crazy time immediately. And then I realized, yeah, I have to offer the owner an economic solution as well. So I say, okay, and I did this in our own, when we were keeping our horses in a stable in Germany for a few years, which was not ideal. This is where crazy time really saved us. And then I realized that the kids that were coming out, they loved it. So they would help us do the crazy time. And then we could say, okay, look, the side of the arena, the long side, this is 60 meters or 50 meters or whatever. Let's check though. So now we walk it. Okay, how many steps did you get? How many steps did you get? Okay. And how long did it take? Oh, we didn't time it. Okay, let's time Petra. Okay, how long does it take for Petra to get down the arena? Oh, maybe Petra can go a little faster. Come on, Petra. And this is before we even bring the horses in, right? And then we say, okay, how fast is Petra? Oh, I don't know. But it took her 5 seconds, 10 seconds to go from one end of the 50 meters to the other. Here, look, we get the cell phone out. We can do distance over time. That's speed. We can work out Petra's speed. Now let's do the dog. Now, hold on. We can build these jumps for the horses. Now we have some team building. Oh, but we can measure how high are they? How heavy are they? What is the distance? So there's some little bits of math coming in there as well. And then we make them jump small so Petra can go over. Is Petra slower or faster over the jumps? Now we send the kid down. Then everyone's done some maths. They had fun. They've laughed at each other. Then we bring in the horses and we do the same thing. And then we're starting to learn horsemanship and stuff. And then I'd say, look, maybe this is a school group. And maybe that school group is paying you 300 euros to be there. You just met the needs of the horses and the needs of the kids at the same time. So there's no financial loss or pressure or stress to give the horses what they need. So now we can't say this is impossible.
Mhm.
and maybe we can do 5 sessions of crazy time in a day. And sometimes the horses are full of energy and sometimes less, but they're going to interact with each other and have curiosity and problems to solve. And there's one solution there. Can we do this? But it took me a while to train myself to think in terms of these solutions. And I think it wasn't until I was in the same position as
Yeah.
that person that I could put myself in their shoes when I was living in Texas. Well, we had a ranch, you know. So, and when I go and give talks at horse equine events, sometimes I will hear people talking in a way that is making people feel ashamed because they don't have the state of Wyoming as their backyard. But the fact is most people don't, you know, so what are we going to do for those solutions? So I presume you have to think in these terms as well,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you give us
Not a
some
sometimes.
examples of creative solutions you've come up with for people?
Yeah, it's like the trailer, or sometimes, yeah. It, in most of the time, sport horses don't have play crazy times with other horses because they
Yeah.
are very scared for injuries, and
Mm.
that's a pity, because a horse wants to have a social contact with the other horses.
Yes, which often involves kicking each other. It just does. You know, it's how horses are.
Yeah, yeah,
So
and
what do you do in this situation?
yeah, I always say that it should be better to give them some time together. But I see it that there is a difference, because 20 years ago they were all stabled, and I see now that much more people do have paddocks or meadows.
Mm,
But in sports, you can see a lot of horses that are on their own on the meadow or in the
mm,
paddock, and they can socialize over the fences.
mm,
Yeah, but I really hope that, and I see a lot of sports stables with little Shetland ponies, so they
mm.
can play with the Shetland pony, and when
Okay.
they are injured by a Shetland pony, it's not so worse than it's not so dangerous for their.
And they can't kick the Shetland pony because the Shetland pony's too quick, like a terrier. Yeah.
They can get under the line.
Well, but there, I think that's actually a really good concrete example of
Yeah.
a solution.
Yeah.
You know, so when I'm wearing my dressage hat, you know, I'm also with people who have very expensive horses. And they say, yes, Rupert, we can't put them out together because if they injure the horse, it's so expensive. You know, and whether you agree or disagree that any horse should have a price, nonetheless, this is the reality. So, for example, that solution, get a mini, get a Shetland,
Yeah.
put it in there with him.
Yeah, and it's also a horse.
Yeah, maybe get 3 Shetlands. And then you've got one sport horse, crazy timing with 3 Shetlands.
Yeah.
Going out in the paddock with 3 Shetlands. Maybe that's your solution right there. Yeah. Plus, they're easy to keep. They're not expensive to feed. Yeah. I think it's just really important to have these. You might think, oh, that's such a simple thing to say. But for many people who are facing these questions, it's not obvious. And sometimes a Petra coming along and saying, you know, get 3 Shetlands. And the jobs of these Shetlands is to make these other horses move a little bit and give them company. That makes a lot of sense. That's something that somebody could think, yeah, I could do that.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, sometimes it's just be creative.
Mm,
And problem solving is it's necessary that you are creative, because you can have a plan, but if the plan isn't working well, you used to try other plots.
yes. It's an interesting one because you know this. I come across this, and I probably honestly do this myself in other situations where I know I have a problem, but I don't really want to make a change. So I will say to somebody, I have this problem and I want to make a change. And then the person says to me, oh, well, Rupert, you could do this. And I'm like, no, can't do that. No, can't do that. Can't do that. You know, and then the other person is like, well, but then why are we having this conversation? Why did you engage me? Did you just engage me to vent your frustration and get more frustration? Or do you genuinely want to change something? But you and I both know, or they could say this to me, Rupert, you know, that you would not really like to still be having this conversation in 1 year's time.
Yeah.
So something needs to change. So if not these three things that we put forward, what? I don't know. Maybe I can't do anything. Maybe this is just the way it has to be.
When I work with horses and owners of horses, they both have behavior pattern.
Yes.
So the horse has a pattern how to react, and the owner also has a pattern.
The devil, you know. Yep.
Yeah, and they are. It's their way of interaction. And when I'm working with a horse, I always say it like on an easy way to the owner. Okay, this is your horse. I'm going to the software on your horse is not the right software anymore. He doesn't want to go to the trailer. Yeah. So you installed the wrong software. No problem. I'm here. I'm going to install the right software. So after I'm finished, he will get into the trailer with a loose rope on his own choice. No problem anymore. So I will install the new software. But I have to teach you a little bit about the new software. Because if you don't change, if you don't work the same way like I'm working, you are going to load him next time and you're going to use the old software. So the brain will use the old parts to the nervous system. So you will get the old
Result.
old
Yeah.
result and the old behavior pattern. So
Yeah.
if you want to solve it for a longer time, I have to install software on your horse, so I create new parts, but I also have to show you and to teach you how to work with the new software, and I will create new parts on you, and that's the only way how it will work. And if the
Yeah.
owner, when I started my work, I only trained horses. And then I get to a situation that it was 11 o'clock in the evening and they said, hey, I'm on a competition field and my horse doesn't load anymore. And I started my car, went to the competition field, and then I was in the car on my way back and I thought, this is not right, because when I only train the horses, the problem returns. And then I said to the owners of the horses, if you want me to train your horse, you have to come one evening to my company, and I will organize one evening. It takes 3 hours about horse behavior and
Yeah.
about how to install new software on your horse. And the one who says, oh no, I'm not going to your place, I have to drive for 2 hours. When they said, no, I don't do it, I said, I will not come to your horse and to train it. So you have to search for another trainer. And I was so, after I organized the evenings and they visit the evenings, I was much more successful in my work. Because I trained the horse, I trained the owner, and then there was a new relationship. And there was new software, and the owner knew how to handle the horse and how to work with the new software. And only that was for me the way to work successful.
It's interesting. We have something rather similar. You know, we have 3 programs that are therapeutic: Horseboy method, movement method, and taquine. Horseboy method, you're riding with a child tackine. It's how you train the horse from the ground as a therapy. But movement method, no horses. And what I'm exactly the same. I'll say to usually a family, hey, listen, I will work with you or your kid for about 6 weeks. In that 6 weeks, I do need you to do a parent introductory course or movement method. I will make it as cheap as I can. But if you are not doing this at home, then honestly, anything that good that happens at our place may not generalize over. And because I'm a parent of an autistic child, I want you and I want your child to have success. And I know that the only way this will happen really is if you have a culture at home of moving in these ways that create the neuroplasticity. And I know that people are overwhelmed, particularly the special needs parents. So that's why I say I give it 6 weeks. Somewhere in that 6 weeks, can you find one evening? If they can't, we'll go 6 more weeks. And if they can't find an evening, then I can't continue, because I have to then say, look, I need to make that space available for a family that will follow through. But sometimes what I found when I started doing that was, interestingly, some people went away and said, well, F you. But then quite often maybe 24 months later, they come back,
Yeah.
and say, okay, actually now we're ready. We just weren't ready then,
Yeah.
Do you find the same thing with, yeah.
Yeah, sometimes I had professional trainers, and they didn't like to be in an evening together with like people who was riding on a horse riding school. Eh,
Yeah.
so they were professionals, and so I had a breeder in the class, and he said to everyone, "Oh, I don't believe she's getting my horse into the trailer, because there are so many people tried it, and strong men, and she's a little woman, so how I don't believe it. And if she does it, I will eat my broom." Yeah. And I think
Ooh.
he's still eating it.
Takes a
and
while
and
to
and
talk
it's
to.
so nice because he had a lot of resistance, because he thought, what can she do what my man or the people who are working for me can do. And after that, he's the one who sends me the most clients.
Interesting.
Yeah, because they see it's not strange, it's not spiritual, it's just horse training on a
Yeah.
very smart way. And what is so funny is, maybe you had the same experience when you saw me training Eddie, is that people always tell me, you are doing exactly the opposite as what everyone is doing, but it's so logical.
Mm.
And I said, yes, it is logical what I'm doing. It is.
Yes, it's actually very similar to working with the nonverbal population. What I generally will say to people is, everything you would do with a neurotypical child, turn it upside down.
Yeah.
And if you do that, you'll probably, so for example, if you're trying to direct, stop directing and follow.
Yeah.
That's the opposite.
And
Right? Yeah.
and that's all, what I always say to my students. Think the opposite.
Yes. Yes.
Exactly the opposite what you are supposed to do normally.
Right. It is funny though. It is funny how people
It is funny.
don't always get it.
Because we are working the same.
Yes.
We are working, and that's what I realized when we met the first time. What you are doing with humans, I'm doing with horses, and we do exactly the same thing,
Mhm.
and we have the same approach.
Mhm.
It's so funny.
Yeah, and it's interesting. Back to a decision from the heart. is not always the right decision if it's in isolation from the brain or the gut.
Yeah.
But if it is in alignment with the brain and the gut, then it's always the right decision.
Yeah.
Because I think one of the good things about decisions from the heart is because the heart has no ego. The heart can be broken, the heart can be hurt, but the heart doesn't really have an ego. So the heart can accept failure, oddly enough.
Yeah.
And then the brain can rationalize failure and say, well, maybe this is just the first try or the 100th try, but we will get there in the end. And then the gut has to say, yes or no, really. Like, are we actually pissing in the wind here? Or will the 100th try work? So I think the process that you've described is so interesting because 20 years ago, when the natural horsemanship world was really taking on, you heard so much of people saying, well, just love is enough. Just love the horse. Just exactly all the things you said.
Yeah.
And we saw a lot of people not have success because it's true, it wasn't enough by itself. It needed these other components. It was a good start, but it needed these other components. And then it never occurred to me, perhaps a bit because of my sort of Southern African upbringing, that other people had difficulty recognizing intuition, because I come from a family that values that. So that was always a part. So then I realized, oh, I see. Yes, other people don't. And people would say to me, how do you get in touch with your intuition? I was, don't know. You just feels like a feeling in your gut, I guess. I don't know. And then realizing, oh, I see. If you don't have that, you have no choice but to either make an isolated head or heart decision.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
how do you get into intuition? And what I found with that was there is only actually one way. And that is to spend a lot of time in nature.
Yeah.
And that if one does that, it actually takes care of itself in a funny way. You start to listen with your body to wind, trees, weather. And horse people are good at this because we know the weather will affect the mood of the horse. We know things, all the things in nature will affect. So horse people have a better understanding of this. But of course, the horse people have changed. And when I was a boy, many farmers were horse people. Now it has changed. There are still farmers who are horse people, yes. But it's predominantly now a sport that is done by people who live in suburbs of the city. So, and their horses are living in stables. So they're not spending maybe that time in nature, which is also just the time with the horses. And then I realized, okay. So what you really need to do to be a good dressage rider or to be a good therapy rider, you just need to spend a lot of time with your horses.
Yes.
You just need to literally hang out and include them in things and do your chores with that. So I started with my working students, having them do chores with a horse on the end of a rope. Like, can you push the wheelbarrow and lead the horse at the same time? Not because it's a skill, but just because you and the horse will need to figure it out. And that will get you an interesting relationship with this horse. Maybe the wheelbarrow tips over. If it does, I will not be angry. But try. So when you've, as we sort of approach the 2-hour mark, we need to wrap this up. And I think we've gotten to some really interesting solutions here. Whether it's a therapeutic barn or a sport barn, when people do not seem to have the time to really create that kind of relationship that provides the intuition, you need to give them a solution. And they will say, I have no time. What's your solution? How to create time from no time.
Yeah. Yeah, what I see a lot is that people are not only struggling with their relationship or their connection with their horse, but with the connection with themselves.
Mm,
And I think that is one of the biggest problems nowadays.
mm,
Because there are a lot of people that are only interested in social media, in their telephones. A lot of time is spending, people are spending a lot of time, not with horses or not with nature, but a lot of time. Yeah, and don't, they don't get the connection to their self, but they are outside. They shut down. They are like frozen.
mm,
And I think that is becoming a big problem.
mm.
And if you are not connected with yourself, yeah, how do you want to connect with with another person or with your horse?
So what do you tell them to do? Go take ayahuasca? What?
I never did it. You did. So you can tell them, but I don't. I
Actually,
can.
no, I haven't done it. That's one
No,
thing I
you
haven't done.
didn't. Oh,
Not yet. No, I probably will at some point. But just, I've never been in South America. So yeah.
no,
Well, I have, but not there. Yeah.
no,
But
no. But
sometimes one has to give a solution. Say, okay, guys, do this thing. Just do this one thing. So when you say, okay, they're often the problem might be disconnection from self.
yeah,
Then what might be a solution you would propose for
yeah.
somebody who has no time?
To be honest, when I'm on a stable to train horses
Mhm.
with behavior problems, the owner is not expecting me to say something about self-development or
Yeah.
being out of connection with yourself.
Mm,
When I have the students, I know the students because they are with me for 1, 2, or 3 years. So I
yeah.
know them very well. And we have also the modules for self-development. So I can really help them to develop themselves.
Mm,
But it's it's not something I will do at a horse training, because
okay.
sometimes when I feel somebody's open for it, I will
Right.
give a suggestion, but not standard, because
Yeah.
most of the people are closing the fences immediately.
Hmm. There's something I sometimes say, which is if it's to someone doing the therapeutic stuff, I might say, you are asking this person to make a big change. You want this child to go from not speaking to speaking, or you want this person to go from suffering through trauma to somehow resilience. Or if it's with a horse, you want this horse to go in a trailer, or you want this horse to jump this fence, or you want this horse to do a piaffe. For the horse, this is a big thing.
Mm.
It's a big change. What big change are you making in your life?
Oh, that's beautiful.
Because if you are not making a big change, what tools have you got to show this horse or this person how to make a change? And if you are saying, well, I don't need to make a change, this horse needs to make a change, or I don't need to make a change, this person needs to make a change, that is inevitably conflict.
Yeah.
And the solution I'll often give is this change does not have to be a difficult, traumatic change, like giving up smoking or something. What about learning some Spanish? Or what about reading a very different kind of book to what you would normally read? Or what about something that is relatively easy to do, but is radically different from what you would normally do? And even that you're going to resist because it's not natural, but it will give you empathy and it will give you tools.
Hmm.
because you have to get yourself to that. Even if you're just doing Duolingo Spanish or something, you still have to make yourself do it, and you probably won't. But then when the horse is resisting or the child is not responding as you wish, you can check in with yourself and say, yeah, but is that me?
Yeah.
And if so, if I don't begin to make those changes, how can I show somebody else how to do it? And it's interesting, that one can resonate.
Yeah.
But the problem with saying that is then I have to do it myself. And that is very annoying. Says Rupert, reaching for his Duolingo app. Well, Petra, listen, it's been fantastic. I want listeners and viewers, we are doing this in the end of March 2026. And in June, I believe, 2026, if you're watching this soon, Petra and I are going to do a thing together in the Netherlands. And I will sort of do my inherent classical stuff mixed with neuroscience-y people stuff. And Petra's going to do her stuff. And I invite you to come.
Yes.
At a place in the Netherlands to be decided.
Yeah, I have a very nice place, Rupert. It's nearby the border of Germany. So
Very
maybe
good.
it's
Okay.
also interesting for the Germany.
How far up or down the border? What's the closest town on the Netherlands?
Enschede,
Is it Arnhem?
Arnhem? No, not Arnhem. I think it's not my area, Rupert. So
Is it more north from Amsterdam or more south from?
no, it's near Enschede. And Enschede, do you know that?
No.
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 We have to find out, Rupert.
All right. Do you know
But
which town it's close to on the German side?
Yeah, it's interesting for the German people and it's
Okay.
interesting for the Dutch people.
Very good. Then
Yeah.
we will do. So I invite you guys, come along and meet Petra. Petra's very cool. And one of the things I really appreciate about Petra is she came on one of my retreats that was not about horses. And then she also came twice to learn stuff with us and our horses with no ego at all, with no thing of, well, why do I need to learn from you when I myself am a professional? And I was very struck by that. That's always to me a really good sign if someone just comes and saying, well, listen, I'm curious, without the ego of needing me to show the same thing back. There was none of that.
Yeah.
And that's really unusual. That immediately built trust. And then when I saw her working with one of the horses at our place, I was like, oh yeah, she knows what she's doing. But not just because she got results, because I saw the horse make this decision to do the thing that Petra was encouraging him to do. And it wasn't a question of her making the other thing harder, which is another natural horsemanship thing, make the wrong thing harder and the good thing easier. And I wouldn't say there's anything necessarily wrong with that. And to be honest, that's what I expected to see.
Yeah.
What I didn't really expect to see was the horse making a really clear and absolute decision without a negative reinforcement. That was interesting to me. So I invite you guys to come and watch Petra at work and, go through some exercises with her. She's got a good training program. And if you're listening to this, particularly within Europe, and you're running a therapeutic place, I do really encourage you, strongly encourage you to think in terms of having people like Petra come in and work with your team to help ease the human dynamic and the equine dynamic and the human to equine dynamic. Because sometimes an outsider can create a really positive change when the dynamic between the individuals on the place has reached where it can't really go any further, or seems that it can't go any further. And given that our job is to create well-being, we have to create this well-being in our teams and with our equines. So that was why I wanted Petra to come on the show. So I do encourage you to hire her and engage her services. So Petra, how do people reach you? Give us the website, give us the plugs.
Yeah. You can reach me on my website, www.twomoons.nl. It's two moons.nl.
So it's the number 2
The number 2.
and then the word moons
Yeah.
dot
Two
nl.
moons. Yeah.
Okay, and they can find you there.
Yeah.
All right.
And Rupert, I think you will be pleased because when we are giving the workshop together, do you remember the sport horse with the mounting problem?
I do.
Yeah. So I trained him. He had a big problem when you wanted to mount him. He was jumping like 3 meters in the air.
Mhm.
And after I trained him, he only wanted to step by the how do you say it?
Mounting block.
Mountain block, yes. And he is there when we are giving the workshop, so you can work with him also.
Fantastic.
So yeah, I would
I'm
really.
terrified.
No, because he's such a lovely horse, the
Yeah.
most lovely horse you've ever seen.
Okay.
Yeah, but it would be very nice because then we can combine our works together.
Perfect.
So nice.
Well, I very much look forward to it, my friend.
Yeah.
So there you go, guys. And if you can't make this one, we'll be doing more.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it will
Yeah.
not be the only
Yes,
one.
please. Because
Okay.
it's so nice. We work the same. We do exactly the same on
Yes.
another level, and
Yeah.
that's why, why there's a very special connection also between us, Rupert. So thank you very much for that.
Well, the feeling is mutual. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Okay, my friend. Well, with that, I'm going to press that red button and we will see you on the next one.
Thank you very much.
I hope you enjoyed today's conversation as much as I did. If you like what we're doing here, please do like, subscribe, tell a friend. It so helps us to get this valuable work done and the message of equine assisted stuff out there. And if you're interested in more conversations, you might want to check out our Live Free, Ride Free podcast. And if you'd like to support the podcasts, please go to rupertisaacson.com and click on the Patreon link. If you're a professional in the equine assisted field or are considering a career in the equine assisted field, you might want to check out our 3 certification programs: Horseboy Method, Movement Method, and Taquine Equine Integration. You can find all of those over on newtrailslearning.com. And finally, if you want to check out our cool rock and roll themed merch, back on rupertisaacson.com, please click on shop. You'll find all kinds of fun goodies there. And if you're looking for a way to spend time until the next podcast, you might want to consider reading the books that kicked all this off: The Horseboy, The Long Ride Home, and The Healing Land. So see you next time on Equine Assisted World. Join us for the adventure.